Hey everyone, Duke here, and today we're talking about all the changes in the Master version of Root of Nightmares, so you can get chances at the Adept weapons, cosmetics, and work towards the Dream Warrior title. Do note that I will be assuming knowledge of the normal raid in this video, but if you'd like to learn more about the full mechanics on normal, check out my video linked below. Also, I will be doing helps on these Master challenges throughout the rest of this season on my stream at twitch.tv/dukeiscool, so come on by. Getting right into it, let's talk about a few of the changes throughout the entirety of the raid on Master. The first and major change is that the raid is 1840 power with a maximum effective level of 1820. This means that if you're at least 1820 power, you'll be as strong as you're going to ever be in this raid with the forced -20 modifier. However, if you are below 1820, you will deal less damage and take more damage than someone who is 1820 or above. There are also extra barriers as well as a few unstoppable champions throughout, which we will talk about as we discuss each encounter. Overcharged weapons are active, which means that any champion weapon from the seasonal artifact will do more damage, and kinetic weapons will do extra damage if running an active Surge subclass. Speaking of surges, Solar and Strand Surge are active throughout the raid, which means that all Solar and Strand damage that you do will be increased by 25%. Do note that this does not stack with the overcharged weapons, but you will get 25% extra damage from taking advantage of either of these bonuses. And finally, shotguns will do 25% bonus damage throughout the raid as well. Getting to the first encounter, Cataclysmic, there is really only one big change, and that is that there are extra barrier champions, with an additional barrier spawning every time you kill Scions and spawn the Tormentors. This week's challenge is also in the Cataclysmic encounter and called Illuminated Torment. The name gives this challenge away pretty well, as the challenge requires that the killing blow of all Tormentors must be done with someone who has the Field of Light buff. We tried a few different ways to complete this challenge, but especially with the ad density and overall damage taken on Master, we found that rotating back and forth was too time consuming to bother dealing with, especially with the much easier strategy that we found. For this strategy, you'll want two experienced runners alternating with each other, which is no different than the normal strategy. For the first round of 4 seeds, the ad clear team should kill both Scions, clear as many ads as they can, and get the Tormentor to below half health but not kill it. Your runners should be able to easily finish the first set within the 35 seconds that you start with, without needing any bonus time from killing Tormentors. While waiting for the second round to start, have your 2 runners, one with Izanagi's or some other very high instant damage weapon, and a third person on Divinity be ready to all grab the buff at the same time when it comes up by standing in the circle together. The runner with the high damage weapon will shoot the orb when it comes up, and go with the Divinity player to quickly finish off the rest of the Tormentor's HP, while the second runner starts doing the running phase by themselves. This will immediately give you an additional 35 seconds for this phase because you just killed the Tormentor, while not losing much time on the running part as someone is still doing it. Once the Tormentor is defeated, the other runner can go rejoin the rotation of running. Just make sure to communicate if the current runner is still on their way to shooting their seed so that you don't accidentally deactivate them. This same rotation should be repeated for the next rounds. Before finishing round 2, make sure to spawn in the Tormentor and start chipping its health down. Then, again, have the 2 runners and the Divinity player get ready at the buff for round 3, and once the buff is up, again, shoot it, and have the runner and Divinity kill the Tormentor, while the other runner starts running, and exactly the same rotation for round 4 as well. Note that technically the Divinity person may not need to be in the buff, but just in case they were to somehow get the final blow, that's why we were having the Divinity player also be getting the buff. Do note that these ads do hit hard, so the 3 people that are not a part of this rotation really need to be on the ball when taking ads down, especially barrier champions as they can start adding up. Even as a runner, I ran Arbalist here to help be able to break the barrier shields as well, while sticking with a machine gun as on normal, but instead running a solar one to take advantage of the 25% extra solar surge damage. Wells are of course great for safety, damage, and are also boosted with solar surge, but orb generation and ad clearing supers all will play extremely well here. Also, as a final note, if you are using this strategy, you just won't kill the final Tormentor on the final round whatsoever. Your runners will just finish off the remaining nodes with that extra 35 seconds that you have to start with, plus the 35 seconds that you'll get for killing that quote-unquote third round Tormentor at the start of the 4th round, and that should be more than enough time to make sure to finish this challenge. The second encounter, Scission, is honestly almost exactly the same as on normal mode, at least before we get the challenge mode for it. The difference here is that both sides will get an unstoppable champion on floors 2 and 3 about halfway through the node running, in addition to the barriers at the end of each floor. There also were a few void shielded enemies, but honestly with match game no longer in the game, they died so fast I didn't even notice the shields mattering whatsoever. Again, Arbalest was my barrier weapon of choice here, and whoever is your ad clear on left and right should have some way of dealing with the unstops on floor 2 and 3. We ended up beating this first try, not even knowing that the unstops were going to be there, so you could also think about either using a scout or hot swapping to a scout as a runner to help assist with these, and that is something I will most likely be doing in future runs. The planets encounter Macrocosm is pretty easily the most challenging on Master. All of the mini-boss Colossus are now barrier champions, so you will absolutely need barrier weapons as a planet runner. Due to the ad density and movement throughout the encounter, I also think this is where being forced to be underleveled is felt the most. While certainly not the highest possible damage, I decided to run a Void LMG for this encounter for a couple reasons. First, with volatile flow from the artifact, it could break barrier champions. Killing these scions right before the Colossus would spawn could spawn an orb with Void Siphon on my helmet, and then picking up that orb gave me the volatile to be able to easily defeat this champion. I did also have Arbalest in the cases that wasn't possible. LMGs are also just very, very good at ad clear for the higher ad density of this encounter, and volatile makes it that much better. And going with Void specifically allowed me to take advantage of bricks from beyond, which makes heavy for both you and your teammates at a very high rate, especially in this encounter due to the amount of orange bar and above enemies. Being a Starfire Warlock definitely helped matters here though, where I could use my grenades as a high amount of my damage, but we were still able to 2-phase even with multiple players on machine guns, and you have 3 phases to get it done, so I feel like this is the safer route. We did try everyone on rockets for a round or two, but it just made everything else much harder in terms of survival, in terms of killing everything. Definitely felt like machine guns was easier and safer strategy. Do note that in terms of machine guns, that Solar and Strand will both of course give you that 25% bonus that we are getting from the Surges, and Thunderlord is just kind of a better DPS option in general, especially with the Catalyst. Not kind of, it definitely is. But again, then you do end up losing all of the benefits that we just talked about from a specifically Void one. One other thing to note is, especially as a Warlock, there's a couple of really important tricks that you can take advantage of. Switching from Arbalest to Witherhoard for during DPS does not make you lose ammo, and you can then switch back to Arbalest for the barriers after DPS phase. This was a neat bonus, but if multiple people are running Witherhoards, it may not be as necessary or effective. Secondly, for Warlock specifically, if you do need to drop a well on the plate, take the second to quickly swap to Phoenix Protocol. This will allow you to get half of your super back if you're able to get a few kills from this well, and then you can swap back to Starfire. You then get the benefit of both of these extremely strong exotics, which can make all the difference, especially when trying to take on a bit of a bigger role in an encounter. For the rest of the encounter, everything else is exactly the same in terms of planets, rotations, DPS, and phases from normal. And finally, we have Nezarec. Really no changes here almost at all, with the Colossus again becoming barriers, so bring an anti-barrier stun. I feel like the strategy we've adopted of quote-unquote 1.5 runners works especially well here, where your first runner takes the first and third seed on each side, and the other runner gets 2, 4, 5, and 6. This allows for some extra wiggle room as the runners that the 2-runner strat also gives, while also having that first runner have extra time to be able to kill the barrier and other adds while the second runner is finishing their side. I will say that the challenge is very likely to completely change how we are able to run this encounter, as it's called All Hands and seems to imply that everyone will need to run. I will be making guides on each and every one of these master challenges as they come out, so make sure to come on back as we learn more about those challenges, and we'll go over all the tips and tricks that we have, and don't forget to visit stream if you are looking for a team to run with these challenges with. I hope this guide to all the changes in Master Rooted Nightmares was helpful, and enjoy your Adept weapon, cosmetics, and progress towards the new raid title. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.